Hello, my name is Dave Persons, and I want to talk to you a few minutes about the Bible, sexuality, tradition, and sex and freedom. We live in a pretty dualistic world of opposites. Our normal perspective and thinking is, heat and cold, male and female, love and hate. But in the world of spirit, as I've said often, it's all one. It's beyond the physical world, physical bodies that we have. So how might that apply to Valentine's Day and the issue of love for one another as a partner? Well, it's needless to say that marriage is going through quite a transition and a changing in the last few generations. Divorce was quite rare when I was a young boy, but now it's very common. It's now hovering around 50% as it has for quite a few years. And both men and women seem to take the equal initiative of ending a relationship these days. And infidelity to sexual partners in marriage seems to be pretty equally broken and divided among men and women as well. Um, your best chance of being happy in a marriage for a longer period of time seems to be if you wait until you're 35 or older. You have a much higher chance. You only have about a 10% chance of divorce. Whereas if you're married in your late teens or early 20s, you have a very high chance, 60, 70% chance risk of going and ending up in a divorce or separation court. A lot of things are affecting the marriage today. When I was in seminary in the 1960s, there was this whole phenomena of couple sharing that was started some of it in the seminary in which I attended in Pittsburgh, where married couples began to share partners. And that was an interesting. I have to tell you, though, that my wife and I were not a part of that in those years, but it was interesting to watch and to hear about. But since then, it's only expanded to where today, 10 years ago in a poll, it said about 20% of all couples in a committed relationship were practicing such a as they call it, enhancement to the relationship by sharing sexual partners with others in parties. You all know about the famous one we had in Grand Island a few years ago at the Holiday Inn. Maybe some of you were there, I don't know, but it's very popular. And it's interesting that those who are a part of that 20% of our population, which is probably more now, they have a very small divorce rate, less than 5%, which is really interesting. And most of them, 70, 80%, that says such an activity really enhances their relationship to one another. Huh. Makes it a little attractive to some people, perhaps. Well, it seems to keep growing. Well, what is going on? Why do they do that? And most of these who are in the couple swapping, business, they are very active in their church, synagogues, and temples. So, they see a correlation between their faith and that particular practice. So if you say, what does the Bible say about that in our tradition? Well, the Bible is a very patriarchal, dualistic type of book. Uh, the Bible is very male dominated. In the Old Testament, even thou shalt not commit adultery was not against women because they had no rights. It was written for men so they wouldn't steal other women partners from their colleagues. And if they did, they were to be stoned. But if they found a woman that was not taken, well, then he could make an arrangement and he could have her. In fact, he could have many. Polygamy was very, very common. And if you didn't have enough wives, well, then you could have sexual favors from your servant women, called concubines. All the great patriarchs had those. In fact, old King David even got caught in adultery once by impregnating Bathsheba while her husband was out fighting a battle. And then when he finds out she's pregnant, well, he just has him killed at the front lines and he takes her as wife. Some terrible things were done under patriarchy. But it still was very present in the New Testament. You see those lines and those emphases that, women ought not to speak in the church, not to ever come with their head uncovered. They're always to be in subjection to their husbands. In fact, they're to look at their husbands as if they are their lords, just as Jesus is the husband's Lord under God. So is, if you're a wife, so is your Lord your husband. Well, not very many women would put up with that these days in a lot of areas. And it's a growing kind of questioning, which is questioning the whole credibility of our scriptures. What else is in there? And this patriarchy mentality is so strong that, you heard about the trial in Buffalo a few days ago of the man who killed his wife. He beheaded her. And in his defense, he said he was doing it to save the patriarchal system, which was a part of Judaic, Christian, and Muslim tradition. That he portrayed himself as a modern Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi and a Martin Luther King Jr. to save patriarchy before it ruins our whole country and its demise, our whole world. We would say, rubbish, the guy was crazy, as indeed he was. So what is the answer? Well, that's one of the things that's breaking down that whole patriarchal system where we're more about equality, equal opportunity for men and women, and I love that trend. We're also getting away from our sense of sexuality and sex itself as being some type of a sin and a dirtier part of our existence. That goes way back in our church history to Augustine, Aquinas, who called sexuality and the sexual organs like the sewer part of the human body. What a awful thing to have a brilliant writer to say who could not have broken from that. Of course, couple centuries before that, they didn't allow priests to get married anymore because they didn't want them engaging in sin while they were on the altar. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Well, now all that's being taken out or questioned in a large degree, a long ways to go, that's for sure. That Protestant Puritan ethic is still very alive in many, but it's breaking up. Under the Protestant Puritan mentality, women were just to be service for their husband's sexual needs so that they would not, as men, practice immorality outside of the marriage. And that the woman herself was to never, ever show any desire of wanting such an activity and never dress in any way that would suggest it. Well, that's all being challenged and changed and revolutionized in our country and other countries around the world, especially in Europe. So, what is the answer? What does the Bible, if anything, have to say? Well, out of all the dualities which is a part of the scriptures, there's also that part which is non-duality, and that is that in Christ we are all spirit. We're all part of that eternal spirit from God. In baptism we say there is no male or female. There's no Jew or Gentile, but we're all one. Another verse stresses that we're all one in spirit. I think that's the essence of the message of the man Jesus, looking beyond the traditions which divide people between good and bad, strict, rigid roles between men and women. And Jesus blesses them and forgives them and gives them freedom to be who they are, acting out in kindness and love and in compassion. So my advice today would be for people to live in freedom. And if you're male or female and you're interested in being a farmer, a doctor, a mechanic, an engineer, a politician, so be it. Isn't it wonderful the number of women we see emerging in our political circles and in our medical leadership roles, and how men are staying home and being chefs and cooking and sewing and doing all those wonderful things? Freedom is the name of the game. So whatever gender you are, whatever sexual persuasion you have, accept it, celebrate it, but don't limit yourself because of your particular sexuality, but see that you are free as you can in most cultures, and ours hopefully will continue to grow that way, and hopefully the church will as well, to give you that free expression of who you are. Of course, like the revolution in Egypt, democracy takes centuries to work out, and so will these different roles. But I think that we're living in a day of hope, a day of new horizon, a day of new depths of understanding and experiencing freedom. It's as my great songwriter friend Daniel Nahmod puts in his song, when you hear the music sing, there is no one way, there is no one final way. There is no fateful final chance. Just wake up each morning, do the best I can, and when I hear the music, dance. May God bless you with peace, now and forever. Namaste.